Tucked between winding rivers and thick canopies of ancient trees lay the village of Umuaka, a land so blessed, even the yams grew fat without much rain. But despite its beauty, fear hung in the air like harmattan dust. No one strayed too far. And no one, not even the boldest hunter, dared to enter Ahoogwu forest, a place the villagers said was breathing with eyes. They whispered stories around fires at night, of voices that echoed without wind, of drums that played themselves, and of ancestral spirits who had once walked openly among them, now buried and bitter. The land was sacred, but sacred didn't mean safe. At the heart of the village stood Isiora, the Ofo priest, his gray beard long and knotted like the scrolls he guarded. At 68, he was the last bridge between the living and those who no longer spoke. He often warned, "When the forest stirs without birdsong, close your doors. Something older than man is listening." Then one morning it happened. Obinna, the quiet 14-year-old orphan boy with curious eyes and restless feet, returned from the edge of the forest with a scar shaped like a twisted spiral carved into his left cheek. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just stared. And the air shifted. Isiora's staff trembled in his grip. He'd seen that mark before, once a lifetime ago. The elders were called. Faces turned pale. Old women clutched their wrappers. The boy had awakened something. And in that moment, under the rising sun and trembling skies, the village of Umuaka realized. The curse hadn't ended. It had only waited. 100 years ago, before the first corrugated roofs touched Umuaka's sky, the village was ruled not by chiefs or priests, but by fear. A fear older than language, older than fire. Beneath the gnarled roots of the tallest Irako tree, deep in the heart of Ahoogwu forest, there was once a pact, an ancient covenant between the people and the dark spirit Ndimyocha, the Shadow Eater. The terms were clear. As long as the villagers respected the sacred boundaries and made offerings of their twin-born every 7th harvest, the spirit would guard the land, bless the soil, and silence rival villages. It was unholy but effective. 4 generations, crops flourished, enemies perished mysteriously, and Umuaka prospered. But greed is a hungry beast. One night, under a red moon, a group of young men, led by a warrior named Okigbo, dug near the sacred tree after hearing rumors of gold buried beneath its roots. And gold they found. But in their excitement, they forgot the offering. That same season, twins were born. The first in decades. The villagers rejoiced, but when the Ofo priest reminded them of the ancient law, they refused. "No more blood," Okigbo had declared. "Let the gods adapt to us, or let them fade." But the gods do not adapt, and dark spirits never fade. That night, lightning struck the Irako tree. A terrible cry split the wind. Part animal, part child, part storm. The next morning, the twins had vanished from their mother's mat. In their place, charred palm fronds twisted into the spiral sigil of Ndimyo. From that day, the curse began. Every 3rd generation, one child would be born marked. Not sick, not possessed, chosen. A vessel through which the shadow could rise again. The elders covered the story with silence, buried the tree in taboo, and fed the village sweet lies. But even whispers, if ignored, turn into screams. At first, the dreams came quietly, like whispers hiding behind thunder. Obinna would jolt awake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart racing, eyes darting as if he'd just seen something that didn't belong in this world. In those dreams, fire danced where trees once stood, shadows bled from the ground, and a woman, her face blank, her eye sockets hollow and dripping, stood in the middle of it all. She never moved her lips, but her voice echoed inside his bones. "Obinna!" Then the dreams spilled into his days. The boy who once played by the river now wandered in silence, muttering things no one could understand. He began sleepwalking, his feet carrying him to the edge of Ahoogwu forest, eyes wide open but his soul far away. Once, Chika, his closest friend, tried to stop him and swore Obinna's pupils had turned pure black. The villagers grew uneasy. Children were told not to go near him. Mothers whispered and clutched their necklaces when he passed. That's when Mama Ukamaka, the village's last living healer, was summoned. At 76, she was bent but not broken, her eyes cloudy with age yet sharper than most. She didn't flinch when Obinna entered her hut. She only stared, then gasped. On his cheek, just below the strange spiral scar, a second mark had begun to form. Claw, faint like smoke, but unmistakable. "The vessel is ripening," she said in a brittle voice. "His body is preparing." Isiora, shaken, returned to the scrolls hidden beneath his shrine. He flipped past pages inked with blood and prayers, then froze. There it was, the sigil of the Unyoichai, the marked one. A child chosen once every 3 generations to carry the weight of the broken covenant. And while the boy suffered, so did the land. The goats stopped bleating. The birds vanished. Crops began to yellow overnight. The wind stopped moving, but the trees swayed on their own. The villagers began to say, "The forest is breathing again." But Mama Ukamaka corrected them. "No," she whispered. "The forest is creeping. And soon. It will take what it's owed." The forest groaned as they stepped into it. The leaves didn't rustle like they used to. Instead, they whispered low, bitter murmurs in a language only the dead remembered. Isiora, clutching his sacred staff tighter than ever, moved ahead with caution. Mama Ukamaka, her steps slow but steady, muttered protective incantations beneath her breath. Obinna, strangely calm, walked between them. His eyes glassy, face blank. The chief had forbidden this journey. No one was to enter Ahoogwu forest, not after the last offering failed and the animals began to vanish. But Isiora knew the time for rules had passed. The curse was no longer hiding, it was hunting. And if they didn't find the original shrine, they might lose Obinna. Or worse, the entire village. After hours of weaving through knotted roots and crooked trees that seemed to breathe with hate, they found it. A clearing so silent it swallowed their footsteps. In the center, half buried under vines and black moss, stood the shattered remains of the shrine. Its clay bricks cracked, its roof eaten by time. And at its heart, slumped in shadows, was a broken statue, a twisted figure with 4 arms, 2 mouths and empty eyes. Obinna moved toward it like something was pulling him. "Stop!" Isiora shouted. But the boy didn't hear. Or couldn't. His hand stretched forward, trembling slightly, and slid into the jagged clawed base of the statue. A hiss cut through the air like a blade. Blood trickled from Obinna's palm, dripping into a shallow groove beneath the idol. The ground shivered. Then dark mist erupted, spiraling into the air, thick and alive, reeking of ancient rot. Isiora was yanked forward, his feet sliding toward the mist as if the earth itself was offering him up. His mouth opened in horror. "Mpurundu zir onwu." Mama Ukamaka screamed, voice cracking as she slammed her palm to the earth. A blinding white flame burst from her staff, slicing through the darkness like a lightning bolt. The mist shrieked, recoiled, and vanished. Silence returned, broken only by Mama Ukamaka's rasping breath. She looked at Obinna, his blood still dripping. "It has begun," she said, voice heavy with dread. "He's waking." The night Obinna vanished, the air in Umuaka changed. It wasn't just quiet, it was wrong. The kind of stillness that made grown men check behind their doors and mothers clutch their babies without knowing why. Obinna's sleeping mat was still warm when they found it. His wrapper folded neatly. No sign of struggle. No footprints. Just an open door and a cold breeze that hadn't touched the village in weeks. Then came the sounds. All the village dogs began howling at once, their cries sharp and desperate like something unseen prowled the earth. The next morning, chickens laid eggs as black as charcoal, brittle, hollow and cold inside. Panic brewed in every compound. The elders gathered, but even Isiora said little. He only muttered, "The veil has thinned." 3 children, on their way to fetch water, returned screaming. They swore they saw a boy made of shadow, drifting barefoot toward the old well. His form flickering like smoke. His eyes, they said, were glowing. For 3 days, Chika, Obinna's closest friend, searched the village outskirts. On the 4th day, just before dawn, he found him. Obinna was curled beside a cluster of termite mounds near the forest's edge. Mud caked his face. His eyes were wide open, but completely black like wells to nowhere. Chika froze. Then Obinna turned slowly, his lips trembling as he whispered one word. Ikenga. Name. Or a warning. His body collapsed before Chika could answer. Limbs weak, mouth foaming slightly. Yet something strange happened. His lips curled just faintly. Not from pain. Not from relief. But from satisfaction. Something inside him had returned. And it wasn't alone. The elders gathered in silence beneath the moonlight, deep inside Iziora's inner hut, where no outsider was allowed to sit. The air was thick with secrets, too many held in old lungs for too long. Only 6 of them remained, each one older than their words, their hands trembling not from age but from guilt. Iziora lit the sacred oil lamp and finally spoke what none dared say aloud. We failed. 60 years ago. Gasps followed. Even the walls seemed to lean closer. The tale spilled like bitter wine. There had been another vessel once, a girl named Nwekago, born under a blood moon. When she turned 12, the forest called to her, just like Obinna now. But instead of protecting her, the elders panicked. They tried to kill her before the spirit could fully awaken. They couldn't do it cleanly, Iziora whispered. So they buried her. Alive. Some said she screamed until the earth swallowed her voice. Others claimed she still walks beneath the soil, whispering vengeance. Since that day, the village had never known true peace. Floods, stillbirths, strange fogs. They all began after Nwekago's grave was soaked in silence. Momo Kamaka, silent until now, stepped forward. She was my twin. The fire sputtered. No one breathed. I was hidden away, she said softly, to preserve the bloodline. And now Obinna. He is the last. Her voice grew firmer. The vessel isn't just a curse. It is also a gate. He can reawaken Dumurcha, or trap him forever. But the binding needs something more. She leaned in, eyes glowing with ancestral grief. A sacrifice unspoken, one no scroll dares name. One that cannot be undone. The room fell into a haunted silence. Some stared at Obinna, others looked away. Smoke curled into the night sky as Umuaka prepared for a ritual they had sworn never to hold again. The fire festival, once a celebration of balance between spirit and man, had long been forbidden after the last one ended in blood. But now fear silenced reason. The villagers were desperate. Drums thundered like war, echoing across the hills. Flames licked high from the 7 sacred torches. Masked dancers dressed in raffia and ash spun wildly, their feet moving faster than the eye could follow, as if possessed. Women wailed. Children were kept indoors. At the center of it all, Obinna stood, chained, shirtless, his small chest rising and falling with unnatural calm. His eyes glowed faintly red, reflecting fire that hadn't yet touched him. The chants rose. Then suddenly, his body lifted off the ground, feet dangling inches above the dust. Hush fell like a blade. His lips parted, but the voice that came wasn't his. I see you, daughters of betrayal, sons of ash. A sharp gust of wind scattered embers everywhere. One of the masked dancers screamed, just before a column of fire erupted, swallowing him whole. The mask cracked open as he collapsed, revealing a face the elders recognized. A descendant of Okigbo, the first man to break the covenant. Gasps echoed. Obinna's chains snapped on their own, falling like dead snakes. The boy landed softly, but the voice, it was still speaking, to something none of them could see. It happened without warning. One moment, Obinna stood beside the sacred Irako, staring blankly at its twisted bark. The next he was gone. The soil beneath him had swallowed him whole, smooth and silent, like it had been waiting. That night, A low rumble shook Umuaka awake. Behind the village square, the ground cracked open, a deep wound splitting through the earth. From its depths something pulsed. Then it opened. Massive, ancient, alive. It blinked once, slow and heavy, glowing with a fury that had waited generations. Mama Ukamaka, frozen, dropped her staff as her knees buckled. Her scream shattered the silence. He is no longer sleeping. The land remembers. Panic exploded. Villagers ran in all directions, knocking over stalls, grabbing children, screaming prayers. The air shifted. From deep within Ahoogwu forest, a chant began, low and guttural, sung in a language no one living understood, but every soul recognized with dread. The wind howled, and the sky turned the color of rust. Beneath it all, from somewhere in the cracked earth, came the sound of fingernails clawing through dirt. And in the darkness, a forgotten child begins to dig from beneath the earth. To be continued. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you're the first to catch the next thrilling chapter.